I call the earth, the fire, the wind and rain. Dance, my children, dance. To guide you on this mortal plane. While you dance, children, dance. I made the ground soft beneath your feet so you could dance, children, dance. And the fire to bathe you with its heat. While you dance, children, dance. I made the rain to fall to cool you down. While you dance, children, dance. And the wind to blow you dry again. While you dance, children, dance. I made the sun by day and the moon at night so you could dance, children, dance. So you're always in my loving light. While you dance, children, dance. And you dance with the sun and the moon and the wind and the rain. And you dance with the earth and you dance with the flame. And you dance with the stars in the velvet sky. All things dance in the circle of life. So I call you to my circle now. Dance, my children, dance. In peace and love and togetherness. May you dance, children, dance. Always dance, children, dance. I call the earth, the fire, the wind and rain. Dance, my children, dance. To guide you on this mortal plane. While you dance, children, dance. I made the ground soft beneath your feet so you could dance, children, dance. And the fire to bathe you with its heat. While you dance, children, dance. I made the rain to fall to cool you down. While you dance, children, dance. And the wind to blow you dry again. While you dance, children, dance. I made the sun by day and the moon at night so you could dance, children, dance. So you're always in my loving light. While you dance, children, dance. And you dance with the sun and the moon and the wind and the rain. And you dance with the earth and you dance with the flame. And you dance with the stars in the velvet sky. All things dance in the circle of life. So I call you to my circle now. Dance, my children, dance. Peace and love and togetherness. May you dance, children, dance. Always dance, children, dance. All things dance, children, dance.
Hello, hello out there on the interwebs. Welcome to the reboot of Pagan-Musings podcast here on YouTube. As I'm sure you can tell by looking at the screen there, I've got a different co-host. Collie, Sarah, and I parted ways. And I've got Lord Crow from the Order of the Red Grail Church for Transformational Wicca, ATC, joining me now as a co-host. You've heard him before in the previous incarnation of the show, but he's going to be a regular part of things right alongside there with me. I mean, literally right alongside there with me, as you can see on the screen. And he picked that start song, which is from Spiral Rhythm off of their Roll of Thunder. That's Dance, Children, Dance.
Always been one of my
Hello, Crow.
Howdy,
I'm sorry,
howdy.
what was that?
It's always been one of my all-time favorites. Damn it.
And it's going to take us a little while here, so bear with us, viewers and listeners. We're getting used to this different format. We're kind of...
Meeting will be different, but the information is good, and we do plan on bringing you some of the original content of Pagan-Musings and something else.
For the original content, I'll have to take the audio and just, put a splash screen behind it for the video, but, that can be done. Pictures of the guests or what have you, as well as links to their active pages on the internet and all that. And, hey, and, we're going to be having, as I'm sure you saw there in the opening, the link to the artist there that we started out with Spiral Rhythm, so that you can find out more about them. And, all that's going to be in the show notes attached in the description, just down below. That's the first time I've done that for a video, down below.
There we go. Don't forget to use the comments.
Yes, please do. Let us know what you think. All right. Well, Crow, since you're kind of new to this, our listeners and viewers now, I'm still getting used to that phrasing, are somewhat familiar with you if they've hung out after things went on sabbatical. But, for anybody who might be new to Pagan-Musings or anybody who wants a refresher, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here.
A little about myself. You're gonna have to like drag it out of me, kicking and screaming. I
Oh,
am,
come on. Once you get started, you don't stop.
no doubt, High Priest of the Order of the Red Grail. I've been High Priest for about 6 years now, um, and a student for a good 6 years before that. So I've been a part of the Order of the Red Grail and all of our public workings and events for, we're looking at about 14 years now, which is pretty spectacular in my point of view. I started off as a baby pagan and learned a whole lot about what was going on, and eventually decided to do it the Order the Red Grail way, which isn't too far off. We're a pretty eclectic group, and we have been performing open circles for the general public in cohorts with the Unitarian for just under 30 years. That just makes my head spin. It does. Yep. Almost 30 years, and we've been filling the place. Most Unitarian churches across the country have a CUPS group, which is usually the Unitarian Universalist pagans. And with us acting in lieu, they've never really had to have such a thing. Although we have worked in concert with the CUPS groups in Omaha from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the rest of it, I came from a pretty diverse background. My family growing up was Pentecostal, full on hellfire brimstone, running the aisles, the whole thing. Anyway, which is probably the reason why I have more of a penchant for rituals that have some kind of activity or action or something emotional or moving or something that when you're done, you're walking out going, I want to come back next time. As opposed
Oh,
to
yeah.
the same old, which is the same old.
Yeah, the same old kind of like my background where, you didn't dance. No, you weren't allowed to really have fun in services.
Is that Lutheran?
Seventh-day Adventist.
Oh, close enough. Close enough. Oh no, actually,
Oh,
wait.
depending on which form of it.
Yeah, yeah. There's the pretty good cafe version and the 7-day Adventist version.
Mm. Now, that doesn't mean we didn't know how to have fun, and we did have some good services when I was growing up, especially if the children in the church were involved in the main church service.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing in children's music that fit with the theme or whatever. And, even though I don't have children of my own, I'm still all about trying to get children involved in what we do with circles and other practices within the pagan world.
Yeah, that's another drive that we have. This coming year, we're depending on how things open up, because we're going to do things at the speed of life as it is, as it were. It appears that a little backstory: being that we have been associated with the Unitarian Church for so long, they have been our space for our circles for that whole duration. And when the Unitarians shut down because of the pandemic, so did we, at least as far as public things are concerned. And then once again, when you are in need to still keep sending out the message and your goddess knocks you on the head and says, teach, 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 you have to find the other ways to do it. And Zoom has been a godsend. I think I probably have a bigger class attendance now for student readings and secret classes and so on than I ever had before. Because of the convenience, really, and the ability to present. And that's been a growing factor because we're still experimenting with this particular medium. We may even, and we're kind of still tossing it around, that when we have go back to full moon circles for the public, which is what I was leading to with the Unitarian considering opening their first service in person will be May 9th. We will probably start activities, depending on, once again, the speed of life, somewhere around Lammas. So, and we will be opening with Heart of the Drum, which is the community drawing back together again.
And that is an amazing experience too, Heart of the Drum.
It's a great ritual, and it's all about everyone in attendance, which is another thing that I've always been a part of. Get people involved, get people up, get them moving, um, and make it memorable. I've been to some Wiccan rituals that were anything but, and a lot
I
of
think a
between.
lot of us have.
Right, and usually the bigger they are, depends on the logistics, but sometimes they get really drawn out. But enough of that. Is there anything else that you want to know? Because I could get into Grail details, but we're talking about me. I've been called to the ministry by my goddess, and we have been working to reach out daily, monthly, and keep this thing going for years. It's been a labor of love and a whole lot of study, a whole lot of learning how to teach, how to listen, which is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned along the way. Is the role of clergy is far more complicated than you imagine. I am also certified and able to perform weddings and or whatever recognized by the federal government throughout all the states of the union. Um, Anything else you want to know?
Well, you mentioned the seeker class and student readings and all that. And yeah, I know what that is, but there's probably a few people out there that don't.
Well, for our secret class, we've been holding them live in Zoom for the last over a year now. It is a open door for community pagans, and with the internet, that's a rather large community, um, to come and spend time and to get to know the Grail, but really to find a safe space to where they can inquire about their new or growing understanding of what paganism is, or there's somebody who's been knocking at their door for some time and they don't understand, or they want to know more about some philosophy or history of paganism and so on. So that's really what you get at a secret class. You get a welcome to the community, you get a thorough history of where paganism came from. Right now, actually, we're working on a ritual design that the seekers that I have now are going to be presenting with the the Red Oak Coven, which is our outer coven for the students, and we'll be doing our first real get together live with the maypole in my backyard. So baby steps, but they're learning the why of ritual, the philosophy behind it, and how the logistics of things. So that being that, now student readings. That's for Red Oak Coven. That's the first tier, second tier teaching that you would learn in first degree, second degree. Um, we have two tiers of student. We have a student, and then we also have an advanced student. Um, and that's where they come to get their regular teaching and or teach me, which is my aspect for teaching is they have material, they've read the material, now they need to teach me what they've learned, which is with some input. So I do a flipped classroom.
Mm, yeah. And you know what? I haven't attended the secret class or anything other than the open rituals. But speaking as somebody coming from another tradition, it is a very enjoyable experience as well as informational and spiritual.
Right. We take
And
great joy in that.
what was that?
We take great joy in that particular aspect.
Mm.
We want everyone
And with my tradition being in another state right now, you know, physically they're in another state, not just mentally, but physically they're in another state. Having that sense of community when it's possible to be face to face is a great thing. And your every other week community chat on Zoom has been something I've really enjoyed, even when it's just as you and I, which has happened once.
which is just fine because we're going to be about the same as we are now. That's one thing. Another about 4 or 5 months into the pandemic, as you start experiencing, in Facebook and other internet means that folks are feeling scattered and cut off, and All the groups are canceling. Everything's turning off. The whole play. Everyone's receding, like America needed more receding into our own selves. Um, we decided that an open forum provided on a regular basis would be appropriate for individuals, especially in a pagan community located in the Bible Belt or the buckle of the Bible Belt here, um, that they're not alone. And the individuals that we've worked with and um, uh, performed clergy services for, had rituals for, because we do everything we do is for the community in general. And when that community started to shrink into its own and being afraid, we needed to be able to be at the forefront and remind us that we're not alone.
Yeah, most definitely. I've done my little part with Murphy's Magic Mess, keeping that going strong while the Mama Dragon herself has been, smartly staying at home.
Oh, yes.
And and that's every Sunday morning that I do that at 9 a.m. Central. It's for me almost like going to church.
Yeah, it's also like one of the oldest pagan radio show in the country.
27 years as of April 3rd this year. Murph says April 1st just so it's easy for her to remember, but I did the math, looked it up on the calendar. Her first solo show as Murphy's Magic Mess was Sunday, April 3rd, 1994.
Wow. That was about the same time
I would have to.
We started rolling with public circles also. So it's been kind of hand in hand. Also to mention that Murphy is a intercourt member of the Grail.
Mm-hmm. And as a listener, I've been there since her predecessor, Cindy Clarity, who had Spiral Dance for about 5 years before she handed things over to Murph. And I've been on the show as a co-host, started out minion, as she called us, but eventually became co-host for 13 years now, I believe it is.
And you are definitely insinuated to at least half of its lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And the show itself has definitely walked much farther than the Spiral Dance did.
Oh, yeah. And nothing against Cindy. She had opportunities come up in her life that gave her reason to move on. Right. She's still active in her local community where she's at.
I'm happy to hear that.
Now, you've got this banner thing sitting next to you. Here, let me make sure my finger pointing is actually visible on the camera. What is that banner about?
Well, this one it's a combo. It's an advertisement for the Order of the Red Grail, but you'll see "Believe in Avalon" above the top. Avalon is our active fundraising project to purchase and facilitate pan-pagan land that exists hopefully somewhere between Lincoln and Omaha, because we have two metro areas that are separated by only about 50 miles. There are a lot of pagans in the area and in this region that don't have sacred land. And we ourselves don't have a home, which we are suffering from right at this very moment, that we could have done outdoor things sooner, but, we don't want to rent a park shelter or go into a public park. It's still not entirely safe around here for pagans, as we'll get to later on in the show.
Yeah.
But Avalon is meant to be we were looking for 5 to 10 acres, hopefully an older farm, where we will practice both our sacred rituals and so on for the community, but they'll also be open for all of the different pagan groups that are in this region that generally would have to travel to, say, Minneapolis, Wisconsin, or to Gaia down in Kansas. So that's our dream, and we have been raising money for it this is in our 5th year. I'm trying not to count last year because it just didn't really happen. It was the year that didn't happen, even though it was horrific and it's happening. But we're once again on the trail. We're going to eventually raise enough money or the goddess will provide in one way or the other. Perhaps a benefactor will help us out, but it will be a legacy project that will belong to the Order of the Red Grail, and it will provide for all the pagans in this area. I've said that before. There's also an accent on on sustainable living, sustainable life, and will feature sustainable projects there for. Initially, the first idea was to reclaim the prairie that would have been like an old farm from, depending on what we acquire. If it's a spent, burnt out field like most of them are between surrounding us, we're going to return it to the prairie, which is no mean feat in its own right, and also be teaching sustainable personal practice, sustainable spiritual practice, and sustainable life practice.
All very good things to include there. And I know it's on the screen and it's in the show description, but what is a link that viewers, listeners can go to find out more about the Order of the Red Grail and the Avalon Land Project?
You can get all in one at ordertheredgrail.com. There are sections above for each and
Is
every
it
one.
.com? I thought it was .org.
I think it is actually org. Thank you for correcting me. Because there is an Order of the Red Grail. Yes, please do not go to ordertheredgrail.com unless you want to donate to the Books for Soldiers program, because the original Order of the Red Grail, from which we have had hived off from and moved in this direction, is located in Virginia, and they do a lot of interfaith. They're not necessarily practicing any kind of pagan things anymore, but they are still strong in the raising and purchasing books for soldiers and prisoners and so on, which is part of what we do also. We take collections of books that people are giving away, and we unfortunately, fortunately, but unfortunately, we are the largest single donator of books to the Nebraska prison system, and I see how many books we have turned in the last few years, and that's kind of sad. We've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, but considering there's no less than 5 major prison groups just in an hour to an hour and a half around us, that their shelves are empty and they don't really care. So really appreciate it when we donate.
Yeah. As I go through my library of used books that I'm reading, I will probably be setting aside some books to go to something like that. I know certain content isn't allowed, of course, because of the, where they're going to.
Anything with maps, anything that is a history or involved, they don't want them ever having contact with ways to escape, even if it's a world map. They also do take textbooks, but they have to be new. All right, so we have orderoftheredgrail.boards.net, which is our boards. You'll find a lot of interesting information on pagan activities also, and you also find at ordertheredgrail.org is our website, and it covers what we're doing, how to get involved, when full moon circles are scheduled, the Rainbow Bridge to give honor to the passing of your close loved ones and or pets, the Project Avalon, and fundraising.
A lot going on there.
Yep. We've been at it for a while, and one of our inner court priestesses, she maintains all of our web traffic, so props to her.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad somebody's doing it for you, because I know I'd be lost if I tried to do it.
Right. I'm not necessarily, but I'm also busy.
Yeah. Well, we've spent quite a bit of time kind of getting to know you a little bit, and I'm sure that there's somebody out there who's found this show that really doesn't know who I am, so I might as well introduce myself a little bit. I'm Rev Kess. That's what I go by, at least for podcasting purposes, just because, well, it's a thing. I'm a published author, both fiction and nonfiction. I've been co-hosting Murphy's Magic Mess, like I mentioned earlier, for a number of years. This is year 13 I got reminded of that. And I also host on the KZUM, which is the station for the mess. I also host Lavender Hill, which is a LGBTQIA2S, etc. There's a lot of letters in that acronym, and it changes all the time, but I'm all for that. News and talk program, and one of the only ones in the Midwest, and I'm starting year 11 for that. That happened.
Co-host, right?
I'm sorry, what?
You still have the same co-host, yes?
I don't have any co-host on that.
Now? Good. It's all you
I've been solo for that for about 2 years now. My longtime co-host on the show had to step aside to take better care of a family member.
Gotcha.
So doing what it was that he needed to do. But yeah, occasionally have guests on, and of course with all the COVID protocols that we have to follow at the radio station, I haven't had any guest in studio, but
Right.
Thanks to modern technology like the telephone as well as Zoom, I've been able to have some guests on the show, which is great. And of course this is the reboot of Pagan-Musings, which started let's see here. That was 6 months after I joined Murphy on the mess, roughly. So almost, yeah. You know, there was a hiatus there. There was a break. Things needed to happen, and they happened the way that they did. Not going to go into that because it's neither here nor there. Then doesn't pertain to what we're doing now. And attempted a audio only reboot a year, maybe 2 years ago with Crow, going through KZUM for that, and it just wasn't in the cards at the time. But now we're making it happen because this is something that we realize. I'm sorry?
Yeah, and we're glad to be here.
Yeah, this is something that we've both realized needs to be happening again.
Definitely. Because as I spoke earlier about the pagan community feeling separated, anything we can do to remind folks that we're all still here. Nothing's changed. Just the medium has changed.
Yeah, you get to see our homes now, what we allow you to see at least.
My lovely wallpaper.
The ever-growing pile of CDs and the overflowing bookcases. And, that's just a little bit of the collection here. And You've strategically hidden things behind the Avalon banner, or it's just that's placement.
This is the kind of house that you walk into, and if you have any kind of a clue, pagans live here. If it's not by the Chrononos standing on the mantle, or the sunshine, or the skulls, etc. Plus, there's Order the Red Grail, and then we have our banner on the wall.
Mm. And
my mom is on the door.
My home's not quite as obvious when you walk in. You just kind of know a couple of geeks live here, because I share the house with my brother, who is an atheistic Satanist. Tried that one on for size.
So he's basically a humanist.
Kinda. He's explored secular humanism. He's explored Mormon, almost every other denomination of Christianity out there. I think his exploration of Catholicism was just reading some stuff, because I've been to a high mass. They're boring. No offense. They're boring.
They're boring.
But you walk in and you see books and books and books and Doctor Who paraphernalia here and there. And there's a crow, actually it's a raven, sitting on a skull on top of one of the bookcases. But there's also a drum and a gong and some other instruments that I pretend that I know how to play, sitting around.
That's the way.
And cats.
Drums over here and books. Everything else over there. We also have to make space in our home for gatherings, which can be rather large in a not so large place.
Mm-hmm.
We've learned the shuffle over the years.
Is that the pagan shuffle?
Yep. I'm just thinking I should have taken that list a little farther. It's all good. So, like, what are we going to be looking forward to gifting the listening or watching public with in the ongoing Pagan Musings?
Well, we've got all kinds of topics that we can address, and we've got some features that we want to try to include in every episode. News events that impact the community, and we've got a few of those lined up for later in today's show, as well as guests. Mama Gina's on board for coming on, Barefoot, Bran, just to name a couple of musicians. Pardon me, Lisa McSherry, who just released her Virtual Pagan 2.0, well-timed there, and several other people that, I've gotten not quite sure when they want to be on, but yes, they want to be on type things. Yep. So, trying to get that established.
Much as before, we will talk to the people in the pagan community, and we will bring you news and our own colorful commentary.
Yeah, definitely. Pagan perspectives. And, I wouldn't mind eventually having another host on the show.
Yep, we could probably do that.
Yeah.
I know
it'd be nice since we're two middle-aged men to have a female voice on the show.
Oh, definitely. We also have someone else who's probably choking at the bit, Bear. He would definitely, and he's got the voice for radio.
Does he have the face for video, though?
I'm not going to go there.
Not like either one of us really do, right?
Can't help when we're too pretty for video.
Yeah, well, we've got the matching really high hairlines and the white beards going at least.
The light down over there so we don't glare on the screen.
That's why I'm like, I need to get darker curtains on that window, or it could definitely be a blinded. Oh, I don't sing very well, so I'm not going to torture our viewers with that.
So, welcome, folks. It's good to get it going again. So, why don't we get it going again?
Hurry now. Oh, the world's end, the world's end is coming soon, is coming soon. Don't look back now. There must be something that we can do, that we can do. Quickly now. Come, my friends, come, my friends. We must try. We must try. We can mend as best we can, as best we can, mend the world, mend the world. It's not too late, but maybe it is, maybe it is. We can't go back, we can't go back to the ways before. Just move along, move along. The age of innocence, the age of innocence, lost a different world. The world's end, the world's end, a new world begins, a new world begins.
Alrighty, welcome back. And we just heard from Barefoot Bran off of his brand new album, Meanwhile Back on Earth. That was As Best We Can. Well, we're doing the best that we can with this reboot here. And we're going to, have a few trial and errors, and they're not all going to be edited out because, well, then what's the fun, right?
Yeah,
but we're going to move. What's that?
We move at the speed of life.
Yeah, and there's a prime example right there. But we're going to move on into a segment that we're going to try to include with every show, which is hitting some highlights from pagan news or news that affects the pagan community. And you wanted to start out with something that's happening in Pennsylvania.
Yep, currently, this pagan is suing Panera Bread Company, alleging religious discrimination. In an article on religionnews.com, Heather Green, who is well known in our community, writes an article detailing how a Pennsylvania woman has filed a lawsuit March 24th. So this is kind of like not up to date, but as we all know that lawsuits take a while to move through corporations. But anyway, Tammy McCoy of Clairton, Pennsylvania, she was hired as a baker at a Panera location in a Pittsburgh suburb. And according to Violin, she never discussed her religious beliefs, which that's not a bad idea, folks. We were just talking about that a few minutes ago. Dare to be silent, dare to know. And if you are new to paganism, it's an umbrella term that's used to cover a number of different growing religious and spiritual practices. I am taking some of these excerpts straight from Heather's article. According to the lawsuit, the religion came up in late May of 2020, and while she was on a break and was asked rather demandingly what her religious affiliation was, and she made she admitted that she was pagan. And after that point, she started to encounter escalating discrimination to the point of where on July 27th, she was given notice that she had to leave her job. Both her and her husband were both fired. This lawsuit was filed at the Pennsylvania federal court and under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prevents discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. As she definitely does on a regular basis, the Reverend Selena Fox, the executive director of the Pagan Civil Rights Organization, the Lady Liberty League, and a senior minister at Circle Sanctuary, reached out to both McCoy and Panera, and in her statement she says, "Pagans are continuing the quest for full equality, liberty, and justice in the USA and other parts of the world. Although there have been a variety of pagan legal rights victories, unfortunately, the anti-pagan prejudice, harassment, discrimination, and defamation still happen." So for a little bit more news on the same subject, we'll switch to the wildhunt.org. This is an article placed on the Wild Hunt with a little more detail.
It's just attributed to the Wild Hunt, so it's one of their staff writers.
Yeah, I couldn't find a staff. See, the federal lawsuit on the same dates by attorney Michael J. Ruiz alleges that Panera Bread Company Tammy McCoy was harassed and fired due to her pagan religions, practices, and beliefs. She's alleging harassment and discrimination, as we said before. She says that she was forced to identify, or her manager identified herself as a Christian and demanded to know what the spiritual beliefs were of her employees. And she felt obligated to answer her question since she was her supervisor. And of course, at that moment was the beginning of the downside for her employment, which it's pretty sad, the levels at which individuals that good Christians will go. Nothing against Christians, folks. My mom is a devout Christian. Just some folks are better off leaving their religion at home. Let's see. Also contained in the filing is the alleged retribution followed. A few days later, your hours are being cut until you find God. She reiterated that the plaintiff needed to find God before she would return her plaintiff to the previous schedule. That's just sad. That's just short of the religion by sword. Instead, it's religion by bankruptcy.
Yeah, and those statements were made by the store manager.
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify that for anybody who may be following along and got a little confused.
As far as the rest of it, it's mostly dealing with the current state of the actual case following through court. Selena Fox's deep involvement in finding a stable ground between the two, and using it, of course, as we did with finally winning, as she mentions here, that other things that we've won in the courts, one of the biggest ones that she was involved with and the ATC both were allowing military vets who have died in service to have a pinnacle on their gravestone. Now, that seems like a trivial thing, but they fought it tooth and nail all the way down.
Yeah, it was a long, drawn-out battle.
It was. So, Panera tweets on Saturday, and the some have viewed as a particularly tone-deaf move in the light of the recent lawsuit. Panera Bread tweets, "Shh, we're manifesting pepperoni flatbread." Yeah, it's rough. Now, this is an interesting read, and it has far more information than you'd ever really want to know about the subject. As far as our perspective on it, now, we've lived, both Revcast and I, in the most conservative state, one of the most conservative states. It's a little quieter on it, but it's still, Nebraska nice is not a nice thing.
Nebraska, it's not for everyone.
Yeah, most definitely. Where there's church on every other corner and so on. It can be rough trying to live your pagan life out in the open. There's various ways to go about it, though, I would think, because we have to always be aware of our situation, where we are located, who we're around, how liberal our employers are. These are good things to find out because, as we've learned the hard way, it's still not safe to come out as pagan. It's easier to come out as a lesbian or a gay man than it is to be pagan around here. Neither one of them are great, but I know of more than one person who's lost their job because they were either flashing, which I would define as like wearing big bold pentagrams, or having, as we mentioned earlier, tattoos that are hard to hide in your workspace. But there's also a dare to be silent, because we know that it can be dangerous for our employment situation. And you never know, with these crazy times we're in right now, it's best to just keep your mouth shut. Unless you have some kind of a geese, and I cannot. As one of my high priestesses and myself, if someone asks, I have to say. But I'm honestly, from my perspective, I'm not going to say unless I'm asked. You know, we understand we are out. We have web pages. We have our names out. We do public Fuma circles 12, 11 times a year. But I also don't do them at my place of employment, and they would never understand, ever. So for all you folks out there who, you want to live your true, authentic pagan life, there is situational awareness that you should always consider. Know who you're talking to, know what level of crazy there is, because that's the worst thing for us is the crazy. Most folks are like, oh, you're going to go to hell for that? I can deal with that. That's your perspective. But you pursue me like a what was it? An Oregon State Trooper, female Oregon State Trooper, several years back, pulled over someone because they had a bumper sticker on the back of the car. They were coming from some kind of pagan gathering, and the bumper sticker on the back of their car said, "It's a Druid thing," THANG, and she pulled him over, got his personal information, asked him about whether that's just a bumper sticker was something he believed in, and she proceeded to, for 2 years until he filed a lawsuit to harass him about the Word of God and how he needed to find God. And we're talking a person of, she got his personal information, and she basically outed him in a very public way and had to be sued to get him to stop the harassment. That's as far as I've had to deal with.
Yeah. Personally, in the work environment, the most I've had to deal with when it comes to discrimination because of my being pagan is the rare individual who actually recognizes either the pentacle that I ring on, or pentacle ring that I wear on my left hand, get all the words in the right order, or asks the right question about the tree of life that I wear on my right hand. Now, I've been wearing these rings for so long, plus another one that is just Celtic knotwork. It doesn't have any overt religious significance, but it does have personal religious significance. I've been wearing these for so long that I feel naked without them. Mm-hmm. I have actually left the house for work, gotten halfway there, turned around, came back to get my rings. If I've left my cell phone, oh well, I left my cell phone. Mm. Boss might get a little ticked about that, but I just don't feel like I'm fully there if I don't have these rings on. And other times that I've had to deal with it is an intoxicated Southern Baptist, had to set that up right, came in at like 3 o'clock in the morning when I was working overnights at a convenience store, noticed the pentacle ring that I wear, and said, you're going to hell. And kind of went on a little spiel, got a little preachy with me and all that. And then he segued into something totally unrelated, and he was bashing his own church minister. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to write that off to he's had a little too much to drink. Luckily, he was on foot, as where I worked was a block away from an apartment complex. But I'm going to write that off. He's just a little intoxicated. He came in the next night and didn't even remember the conversation, or made no indication that he remembered the conversation.
Well, that's good. You didn't have to revisit that.
Yeah, I let him, pretend at least that he had forgotten, because I'm like, whatever. Now, on the personal level, I've had a little bit more to deal with when it comes to religious discrimination, and a lot of that has actually come from my family.
Yep.
My half siblings are, between 15 and 25 years older than me. They're essentially an entirely different generation than I am, and they tend to be a little bit more conservative and not quite as accepting of things. I am lucky that for the most part, religion never comes into play when we're having conversations. And as to, me being an openly gay man as well, there's only been one of my brothers, I'm the youngest of 7 kids, only one of my brothers has made any snide or mean-spirited remarks. And I kind of set him straight, pardon the pun, pretty quickly on that. And never really heard anything else from him. Another brother, when I was in a long-term relationship and he'd call our mother, he'd be like, "So how are the girls?" And that was the extent of it. And he's gotten better about that. He's not technically the patriarch of the family. He's the second-born son, but he's the one that's more involved in the family than our oldest brother, who unfortunately is not in the best of health anyways.
Now, in my respect, it's been the same thing. It's been from family. And luckily, in this case, only one, and my mother's sister wanted to perform a intervention when she discovered that I had entered a Wiccan church and so on, which our relationship had been kind of rocky to begin with because she's always been one of those in-your-face Bible thumpers. But I'm really surprised that she did actually even try, because I definitely far outweigh her in the intellectual category. And she did not like the scripture and or passages that I quoted to her that really just pointed out some really things that she didn't want to hear. So that ended that. And since then, it's actually never been mentioned since. So I guess I'm lucky. I haven't been ostracized or ran out of town or written out of anybody's will or what have you. So at least
not that you're aware of.
Right.
Yeah.
We are definitely, as we said before, we are definitely way out there. You know, if there's a pagan event of any size in this area, we're there. We're very often in the planning and or running and or facilitating. So either that, or you can find me at Mystic Fest twice a year when there's no pandemic, and I'll be the guy out in the middle of the aisle that's telling you about Avalon.
And he's not lying there.
Nope. You will.
You can't see the bookcase that's right behind my head, so I'm going to swivel just a little bit. The top 2 shelves of that bookcase are actually Bibles and scholarly works about Christianity. And over on the other side of the room, I'm not going to swivel the computer for that because that'll give you motion sickness. There's shelves of religion and philosophy, and there's even some Christian apologetics and what have you on the shelves, right along with the complete works of Aleister Crowley and what have you. So when we did have some family visit last fall, they kind of got a little bit more of an idea of what was going on. There's like, okay, there's Bibles over here, but you got that over there. And at that point in time, my brother's copy of Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible was not in the living room. That probably would have caused for an interesting conversation with one of our sisters, who is a born-again tent revivalist.
I grew up in that particular world, so I get it. So, a few tent revivals in the steamy south heat and humidity, while someone told me how no matter how good I was still going to make one mistake and wind up burning in hell.
Yeah. Well.
Anyway, be the ones that the beliefs that have something terrifying at the end of it, as a means to make you terrify you or scare you into subservience, it's probably not a good thing. Especially if they tell you that you have to hate them to be a part of them.
symbol of life. In a bed of poppies I became death's wife. His burning eyes, dark heart of steel, trapped my spirit, my dreams unreal. 6 tiny seeds of jewel tone red made me queen of all that is dead. Hecate above, show me the way. Hades, my love, my path, not delay. Oh, mother dear, I see your face. From below I rise, not a moment to waste. The gods conspired to keep me hid. The secret ours betrothal forbid. But earth withered, the mortals cried. My mother's grief could not be denied. And so a deal on Olympus was made. The divine, the mortals, the earth all saved. 6 months in the land of the sun, and the rest beyond sticks undone. Hecate above, show me the way. Hades, my love, my path, not delay. Oh, mother dear, I see your face. From below I rise, not a moment to waste. I, Persephone, Hades' wife, I bring you love, I bring you life. I arise, set the clock in gear. I bring forth the lighter part of the year. Out of the dark, out of the night, here she comes. She brings the light. Out of the dark, out of the night, here she comes, bringing the light.
And we just heard a wonderful little song there, and well, actually not so little, it's a powerful song from Nathaniel Johnstone. That was Persephone Rises, a song written by his wife, Laura Tempest Zakroff, who has been hosting off and on since 2012 a wonderful Persephone event. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because it has to do with, Beltaine, spring, new beginnings, as well as how us as a community, locally and globally, have had to change how we do things over the last year.
And as we see in the awakening in the community, we're also seeing a certain level of caution, but still, as the Sabbaths go by, time goes by, whether we jump out there or not. But it seems like they've been doing this one since 2012. And the latest incarnation, which is a great example of the way that pagans are reaching out today, they've had to take an established festival and taken online. And last week, Saturday, April 24th, they did their first foray into the online version, and they had live lectures, workshops, rituals, and some performances to stimulate your mind, body, and spirit. Let's see, as they said, to be moved by poetry, dance, and song, finding like-minded folks and inspired by the possibilities, recognizing the magic within you. They're calling this Waking Persephone, and as she uses her tagline, creating an experience that embraces queerness and inherently sacred and magical in mind, body, and spirit. And the theme of the waking of Persephone is very much what we're seeing going on right now. If you look out your window and see all these flowers and leaves, you'll see the waking of Persephone. When she makes her way from the underworld, the world wakes up as her mother, as the story goes, released her sadness and the world awoken again. In their particular online festival, they have, as are quoted here, said there are lectures, workshops, rituals, and discussions, and these were being led by the likes of Dame Wilburn, Julia Finch, Jinx, Vervain, Camera, Laura Tempest Zakroff herself, Lee Harrington, Michelle Bellinger, and Amisha Magdalene. I bet that it was a wonderful. Unfortunately, I couldn't participate, but much like some of the other individuals that we've, different groups that we've encountered in our lifetime, and who, like many other pagan groups, the festivals that they put on a yearly basis are the means in which they do their outreach, they do their events, they mingle with other groups, but there's also a very few chances to raise funds for their church practices. And these got squelched pretty hard last year, but just about everyone, as you do when things change, even such as, like, say, Three Gates Gathering, just off the top of our head, they switched immediately to online, and both Pagan Unity Festival and the Three Gates Gathering worked together for a large, ambitious online event last year, which went off very well. Although this year, like a lot of others, they're going back to face with some changes, of course.
Yes.
But, like, say, as we mentioned, Three Gates Gathering, which is hosted by Alfred Willowhawk and his lovely Willow Wellspring. They'll be hosting special guests like Brian Ballard, Brent Calhoun, and Melody Rowan, plus musical guests Brian Hankey, Louis Garrow, and Krista Chapman Green, which is to say that a lot of these individuals, especially the touring musicians, are just delighted for the ability to be able to go out and do what they do. Barding has become a rough thing over the course of the year. We're also seeing other individuals. You can find more information about the Three Gates Gathering at threegatesgathering.com. It'll tell you where the location is, when it's going to be happening. But out in the rest of the world, the greater pagan world, you'll find at fairyfaith.net what's called Linda's List of Pagan Festivals. You'll find that there's by Linda Kerr, Kerr. She has a pretty decent sized list for this year alone of both virtual and personal gatherings that start in February. Many of these have gone by, such as the Virtual Spring Mysteries Festival for the ATC, Trillium Spring Gathering. In April, what we have going on right now, right at this very moment, is the Virtual Brotherhood by the BOG. Yep, Beltaine in Our Haven in French Lick, Indiana. And in the coming future, we also have Beltaine at the Four Quarters, Horn and Honey, Moon Dance in May, the Wellspring Gathering, the Pagan Unity Festival, which most people know about, is going to happen this year. Three Gates Gathering, as you mentioned before, this Free Spirit Gathering, Midsummer, all the way up to June, Sunfest. So folks are getting up and getting out, and as we see the immunizations starting, and people are testing their wobbly feet out in public again, you're going to see a number of different incarnations. About half of these are virtual, and the other half are in person. And it's my guess that in this particular year, the attendances for some of these will be lackluster at best, but it's a beginning, and it's a stepping out, and it's reminding each other that even though the world seemed to have scattered over the last 13, 14 months going on here, that we never really were spread apart. We just changed the medium.
Mm-hmm.
Haha, I remember that.
Remember what?
The changing medium. Because much like us, we've had to do it mostly through live events and very little personal contact. But we have to be wise and stay the course, because all of us are doing this together, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. I noticed over the course of the last year that many of the podcasters that I had been listening to prior to the start of the pandemic and had kind of phased out started to come back in, started to produce new content, get regular things going again, because they were realizing that without the face-to-face that so many people were truly depending on before the pandemic started, without that the feeling of distance was coming back into play. I'm sure, Crow, that you, like myself, remember when most of the sense of pagan community was through newsletters, either typeset newsletters or listservs on the internet, and the era of Yahoo groups and what have you. And then we got things like Facebook and pagan versions of that that have come and gone. I'm not sure which ones are still around.
Much like Witchfox. Witchfox was a staple for many years, and they have unfortunately given up on it because it's no longer cost effective.
Yeah. But with podcasters and video capability and all that coming into play, we're starting to rebuild that lost sense of connectivity that over the last year kind of played a role for a lot of people. I've been doing a kind of virtual teaching, if you will, for going on 13 years now, with being on Murphy's Magic Mess and the original podcast, and doing a lot of things online. So that is an easy thing for me to slide back into, not necessarily with some of the technology, still learning some of the ins and outs of video production and what have you, but it's going to come along, and our viewers, listeners to the program here are probably, some of them are rolling their eyes going, do these guys even know what they're doing?
You're going to find out.
Well, not necessarily do they even know what they're doing when we're talking about pagan issues and spirituality and all that, but when it comes to producing this show. So we're going to have some learning to do, just like everybody else when they start something new.
Right.
I keep looking off to my left because that's where I see Crow on my screen, and I'm not sure where he sees me on his screen. So it's one of those things of look at the camera, look at the audience, which, not having done a video cast format before, that's something new for me I'm used to when I'm on just regular radio or whatever, I'm looking at the computer screen, or I could be staring off into the ceiling while I'm talking and nobody knows. Well, you're going to know now if I lean back and stare up at the ceiling going, oh my God.
Something's wrong. Definitely. So hitch a ride, folks, and follow us as we progress into something that also, as before, helps to remind folks that we're all still here, and we're coming out of the darkness of the craziest days that I've seen in my lifetime. I'm not ancient, but I grew up from the 60s on, and even as tumultuous as things have been, I've never seen this insane. So
No.
We can do this together. We are an intentional community with accent on the intentional. We choose our folks and we choose our religious path, and we want to present as much information and an educated point of view, hopefully, for the most time, on current events and the fact that both Revcast and I are absolutely enamored with pagan music. So it'll all revolve around that entire theme.
Yeah, we've picked out music that at least we feel is appropriate for our little segments here in the show. And we're going to go out with one that's about the quickening, getting that new energy flowing back into you. And that's a song by Spiral Dance, and it's the title track off of one of their albums, as well as it appears on one or two others. Pretty much the exact same song, maybe just a slightly different variation on who's playing what instrument. Now, it'd be great to have Adrienne and her crew on the show at some point in time to talk about their music. I managed to do that, and it was,
Bad boy with
17-hour time difference. They're in the future, more or less, for us. And, when I was doing the show originally, recording at like 10 p.m. Central Time, she had to bribe the band to come to her house by saying she was going to make them brunch, just so that they could all be there. And it was a really good show. They even had somebody from Florida was visiting them, so she got to at least set in with them on the show. So, nothing like traveling halfway across the globe just to be on a podcast, right?
Come join us as we wake up the musicians across the world.
Yes, definitely plan on getting as many musicians on, and maybe even working out ways that we can have them do a song or two live for you. Live for us, recorded for you. You know what I mean. But
also, pagan personalities out there, too.
Oh, yeah.
We want to reach out and everybody have some time.
Mm-hmm. We've got a Facebook page for the podcast. It's Pagan-Musings Podcast Channel is the name of the page there on Facebook. And, of course, you're watching us on YouTube, and we'll be including videos that we either do that aren't directly related to the show, or we'll be making playlists of music that we really enjoy and getting that all out there for you. So, just keep on checking out the YouTube channel and checking us out on Facebook and letting us know what you think. Leave comments, subscribe, click that big red button there that says subscribe so that you find out when the new shows launch. And, definitely check out the show description. We've got links to all the artists that we've played, the articles that we've talked about, or the events or what have you on this show, and they'll be the same in future shows. You can even drop us an email if you want, paganmusings@gmail.com. So, yeah.
We will respond.
Yeah, we'll get there.
With a closing question, folks, maybe in the discussion or in the comments, tell us what you think about whether it's time for us to come out or not in public. Is it too soon, or are we right on pace with the quickening?
sacred flame, from within the darkness came. New spring made from winter's crown, brightest queen of morning song. Bridget, with your white swan sing, move us to the cusp of spring. See the ravens come on wing, 'tis the time of quickening. Keeper of the sacred flame, from within the darkness came. New spring made from winter's crown, brightest queen of morning song. Sweet serpent rises from the earth, awaken fallen seeds to life. Moving from the bright one's hand, fire burns within the land. Keeper of the sacred flame, from within the darkness came. New spring made from winter's crown, brightest queen of morning song. Alive the sacred flame, the eternal fire for all to see, the giver of the prophecy. Keeper of the sacred flame, from within the darkness came. New spring made from winter's crown,